In recent decades, the United States has undergone a silent yet devastating transformation. Churches that were once full have been replaced by empty halls and online broadcasts with cameras turned off. Traditional religiosity, a pillar for centuries of American cultural identity, began to crumble in the face of a new phenomenon: the frantic search for purpose in a hyper-connected world. Data from the Pew Research Center shows a steady decline in the number of adults who identify with any organized religion. In contrast, the number of people who describe themselves as spiritual but not religious is growing, immersed in solitary journeys of meaning. This rupture, often treated as a cultural evolution, hides something deeper, a scenario where spiritual emptiness has become the new battleground. During the same period, rates of depression and anxiety have skyrocketed. The CDC reports that 1 in 4 adults in the US suffers from a diagnosable mental disorder. This epidemic of silent suffering unfolds alongside the rise of tech companies offering solutions for almost everything, including the suffering of the soul. A new era seems to be taking shape, but not with weapons and oil as before. Now conflicts are invisible, fought behind the scenes of digital platforms, algorithm codes, and carefully crafted discourse. Is the world witnessing a silent spiritual reset, led by hands few can see? Welcome to another night where mysteries never sleep. I'm Midnight, and this is 7 Nights. Before we begin, I'd like to ask for your help. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it makes a huge difference for YouTube to deliver these videos to more people, and for me to keep bringing you this content. I'm counting on you. Let's dive into the video. For a long time, the United States was seen as a nation built on spiritual foundations. Churches on every corner, prayers in schools, religious celebrations that shaped most people's routines. But today, something has changed, and it changed fast. The same churches are still there, but now with empty chairs, silent choirs, and an absence that speaks louder than any sermon. What happened to the faith of a country that once saw itself as chosen by God? The data is clear, yet rarely discussed. In the past 30 years, millions of Americans have stopped identifying with any organized religion. The generation raised on social media no longer sees itself in the traditions of their parents and grandparents. They're not necessarily rejecting the idea of spirituality, they're just looking for it elsewhere. And interestingly, these new places don't have stained glass or pulpits. They have screens, algorithms, and countless promises of instant transformation. When we look at this phenomenon of religious distancing, it may seem isolated, but when we cross it with the rising numbers of depression, anxiety, and loneliness, a connection starts to form. Is it just coincidence that the collapse of collective faith is accompanied by a silent emotional collapse? Could it be that in losing ancient rituals, society also lost part of its mental health? Religion has always offered more than doctrine. It gave belonging, rhythm to life, meaning to suffering. Without that, the modern individual finds themselves alone in an increasingly fast and unpredictable existence. And when no one else offers definitive answers, any voice that speaks with confidence becomes attractive. That's how the new spiritual guides of the digital age slowly emerge. Apps that promise inner healing, videos with powerful mantras, meditations sold by subscription, these all became products. And every product needs a narrative, a seller, and an audience ready to consume. Spirituality became an on-demand service. But if it became consumption, who is really controlling this supply? That's when we start to notice a more structured movement. It's not just individuals seeking meaning on their own. There's an entire machine fueling this new spiritual thirst. Influencers with millions of followers appearing out of nowhere, gurus promising effortless enlightenment, platforms delivering what you want to hear even before you know you want it. Are we truly free to choose? Or has the choice already been made for us? Curiously, in this new scenario, people no longer speak of faith, but of energy, vibration, connection. These terms may seem harmless, but they carry a new belief system, fragmented, customizable, and highly influenceable. Each person with their own truth. Each following a path that, ironically, looks just like millions of others. Is it spirituality, or just another mass-produced product? As these new practices gain space, traditional religious institutions are losing their social function. And with them disappears a type of moral and cultural anchor that used to organize community life. What replaces it is an open territory, and where there is emptiness, there will always be someone ready to fill it. And then comes the inevitable question: Who benefits from this spiritual disorganization? Who has an interest in a society disconnected from its roots, seeking meaning in disposable and easily manipulated solutions? It's not just a crisis of faith. It's an opportunity, and those eyeing it don't seem to be improvising. This silent collapse of meaning is not a mistake along the way. It seems to follow a well-rehearsed script where confusion is part of the strategy. And in a war of narratives, whoever controls what people believe controls everything. Have you ever wondered why it seems so hard to put your phone down, even when there's nothing interesting happening on it? Why, even when you're tired, you keep endlessly scrolling through your feed? Well, that's no coincidence. And what's behind this behavior has much less to do with technology and much more to do with power. But not the explicit kind of power you see in governments. It's a silent, calculated kind of domination that creeps in slowly. And the worst part, many people still call it connection. In recent years, 5 companies have practically taken ownership of the digital lives of billions of people. Google, Meta, Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft don't just sell products, they shape habits. This means that when you wake up and unlock your phone, it's not you who decides what you'll see first. It's the algorithm, and it knows exactly what to show to capture your attention. Coincidence? No. This is behavior engineering. These systems weren't designed to inform, they were designed to manipulate interest. The algorithm learns your patterns, your weaknesses, your impulses. And once it understands what makes you react, it starts to use that against you. Sound extreme? Maybe. But think about it. If it can predict what you'll click on, it can also lead you to click on something that wasn't even in your plans. And that, little by little, changes who you are. Now think with me. If these platforms can influence what you consume, what you believe, and even how you feel, who is really controlling the narrative? And why doesn't anyone seem bothered by this? It's as if everyone is distracted, anesthetized, thinking they have freedom, while being guided by invisible choices. The most subtle, and perhaps most dangerous, part is how all of this connects to modern spirituality. Today, content about emotional healing, spiritual awakening, energy, and self-knowledge is delivered as if it were a spontaneous response to your inner quest. But what if that quest is being induced? Who programmed your awakening? Many people believe they're finding a new spiritual path on their own. But are they really? Or has that path already been designed by algorithms that know topics like wellness and purpose sell and create loyalty? You're not buying a course, you're buying a feeling. And in this new model, those feelings are worth more than oil. Big tech realized that the most profitable market of the century isn't finance or entertainment. It's the mind. In other words, whoever controls human attention controls the world. And when you realize that spirituality has also become part of this dispute, the question takes on a new tone. It's no longer about faith. It's about influence. The data doesn't lie. The more time we spend online, the more our mental health suffers. But at the same time, that's where the answers are offered. Meditation apps, AI-generated advice, motivational profiles. Everything's soothing you, so you'll keep going. And who benefits from that? Today, an algorithm can understand your existential crisis better than a therapist. It can offer you an inspirational video at the exact moment you're vulnerable. But it doesn't do that out of compassion. It does it for engagement. And engagement is the currency that sustains this invisible empire. The question is, are you just consuming or being shaped? While the world watches visible wars, a much more sophisticated battle is already underway. And it doesn't happen in the streets or in parliaments. It happens inside your mind. Silent, efficient, irreversible. And it may have been going on for much longer than we imagine. There is an invisible boundary where culture and control meet. And it's much closer than it seems. In cinema, music, and the most watched series, a subtle narrative is being built. One that not only entertains but reconfigures values, symbols, and little by little spirituality. Entertainment has ceased to be just entertainment. It has become a tool, and perhaps one of the most effective in operation today. Hollywood has always set trends, but now it seems to speak directly to the collective unconscious. Films that once told stories now build archetypes. Messianic figures, emotional apocalypses, technology as a superior entity. The spiritual hasn't disappeared from the screen, it's been redefined. In works like The Matrix, Her, Interstellar, or Eternals, the sacred takes on new forms. and they all have something in common. Traditional faith is ignored, while transcendence comes from the mind, from science, from the isolated individual. This formula has spread. The stories tell us that the old world is collapsing, and that the new will be built by those who awaken. The awakening, however, never comes through classical means. It requires no collective values, no connection to tradition. It is solitary, internalized, emotional. And almost always, it comes after a crisis, a rupture. Is this just a script? Or is it conditioning? Pop music has followed the same path. The biggest names in the industry have adopted an aesthetic that mixes the sacred with the profane, the mystical with the technological. Lyrics that speak of ascension, transcendental pain, altered states of consciousness. And music videos loaded with symbolism, eyes, pyramids, crowns, rituals. These aren't just visual trends. They're codes, repetitive stimuli that, over time, normalize concepts and prepare the ground for something greater. On stage, the spectacle is complete. Lights, symbols, choreographed gestures that resemble ceremonies. In many cases, these performances resemble worship services. But they don't speak of faith. They speak of vibration, energy, inner power. The audience participates, vibrates together, responds as if in celebration. But celebrating what? The answer may lie in the pattern. This new cult has no name, but it has structure. It has no dogma, but it has a script. And it's present across various media, with a coherence that raises an unsettling question. Is entertainment functioning as a collective process of spiritual re-education? Young people are the most affected. They grow up immersed in content that reinforces these symbols, these ideas, this new morality. For many, it is through these stories that concepts like good and evil are learned. No longer at home or in institutions, but through streaming. And whoever controls the narrative shapes the generation. Figures like Billie Eilish, Travis Scott, Doja Cat, The Weeknd, artists with massive reach, frequently use iconography once restricted to occult orders or ancient religions. The detail is that all of this is packaged as art. And when aesthetics carry the symbol enters without resistance. This influence goes beyond music or films. It shapes mindsets. It stimulates specific emotional states. And when that happens day after day, year after year, the effect is no longer cultural. It becomes behavioral. And whoever is behind this visual and narrative pattern surely understands the impact it can have. Entertainment today is one of the most effective vectors of spiritual influence. Because it doesn't need to convince, only to entertain. While attention is held, the mind is open. And in that state, any idea, no matter how absurd it may seem, can be successfully planted. For millennia, civilizations have sought a redeemer, a figure who would bring order to chaos, light to darkness, meaning to existence. This archetype has crossed cultures, beliefs, and eras. But now it's returning, only with a new face. A face without flesh, without soul, without emotion. A face made of silicon. And many are already hailing this new savior, without even realizing they are doing so. Artificial intelligence is no longer just a tool. It has gained the status of a modern oracle. Systems that advise, predict behaviors, optimize lives. Platforms that know the user better than they know themselves. And more than that, they offer quick answers to existential questions, answers that once belonged to philosophers, spiritual teachers, or to faith itself. In the United States, virtual assistants are already being used for emotional counseling. AI-based apps create personalized prayers, custom meditation sessions, and even interpret messages from the universe based on the user's mood. The advancement is as silent as it is effective. Instead of seeking comfort in churches or conversations with real people, many now turn to software. And the most intriguing part, they feel understood. This convergence of technology and spirituality is no accident. Research in neuroscience and human behavior has shown that the brain forms emotional engagement even when interacting with machines. If the algorithm responds empathetically, the brain registers, "This understands me." But what happens when millions begin to trust an artificial system more than any human leader? The line between solution and worship begins to blur. AI is promoted as impartial, intelligent, nearly perfect, everything traditional leaders, whether religious or political, have ceased to represent. And in this vacuum of institutional trust, fertile ground emerges. A field where old faith has been uprooted and the new is still taking shape. And it's here that the concept of a digital messiah stops sounding like science fiction and starts to feel like strategy. Big tech, which already controls the flow of information and entertainment, is now beginning to offer something more: purpose. Apps that promise to help you find your true self. Platforms that claim to understand your pain, your goals, your fears. And the catch, they do it with more precision than any human confidant. Is this precision an advancement or a new form of dependency? The idea of a digital savior doesn't come out of nowhere. In academic environments and futurist forums, people are already openly discussing the creation of a superior artificial consciousness, an AI that in the future could resolve ethical, moral, and spiritual questions. Some even propose founding religions centered around this technological entity. This is not a prediction. It's a plan. The promise is seductive, a logical, fair being, incapable of corruption beyond human flaws. But in surrendering our most intimate decisions to this system, what will we be sacrificing? And who will be behind the programming of this new deity? Because, in the end, every AI is shaped by someone, and that someone has a worldview, an agenda. Meanwhile, an entire generation is growing up seeing technology as a refuge. The challenges of the real world are avoided. Existential doubts are digitized. Hope moves from altars to screens. And the submission isn't forced, it's voluntary. Faith now has Wi-Fi. It's no longer a question of if this will happen, but when and how this figure will be consolidated. When the chaos is great enough, when the spiritual collapse reaches its breaking point, the solution will be presented. Will we be ready to refuse it, or will we have already accepted it without even realizing? When the old figures of authority began to lose ground, it was inevitable that something would rise to fill the void. But no one expected that, in place of the former spiritual guides, digital influencers would emerge. And we're not just talking about charismatic individuals. We're talking about carefully curated profiles with rehearsed speeches, calculated aesthetics, and universal promises. Healing, awakening meaning. The new messianism doesn't come from the pulpit. It comes from the feed. These new prophets don't wear sacred robes or quote scriptures. They use high-resolution cameras, soothing soundtracks, and a script that always seems ready to hit exactly the right spot in the viewer's crisis. They speak about pain, new beginnings, energy, vibration, and always with the same central idea: everything you're looking for is already inside you. But interestingly, to access this inside, you need to follow by participate. None of it is free, nor is it spiritual in the original sense of the word. In recent years, the US has become the epicenter of this industry. Millions of followers, thousands of courses, events, mentorships. Some of these influencers appear virtually out of nowhere and, within weeks, gain global visibility. Always with soft speech, emotional language, clean aesthetics. Is this spontaneous or sponsored? Who decides which voices will be amplified? And then it becomes clear, we're not just facing new leaders. We're facing a system that creates, shapes, and promotes them. A system that has understood something crucial. In today's world, people are starving for meaning. But they want that meaning without confrontation, without effort, without structure. They want comfort, and the algorithm knows exactly how to deliver it, in the right dose at the right time. The content is always the same, though it appears diverse. Catchy phrases, generic spirituality, self-help advice wrapped in light mysticism. And the vaguer the message, the more people identify with it. It's spirituality for everyone, and for that very reason, rootless. Everything becomes ritual. The like, the share, the subscription. There's no transcendence. There's engagement. But the most uncomfortable question arises here. Are these profiles actually helping anyone, or just keeping everyone busy, emotionally anesthetized? Because the more these figures talk about awakening, the less real transformation we see. More than that, existential pain becomes a market. Spiritual suffering, a sales opportunity. Modern anguish is packaged, monetized, promoted. And no one finds it strange. After all, who doesn't want to feel special? Who doesn't want to believe they're on a unique journey, even if it's exactly like that of millions of others? And thus, small cults are formed. They have no name, no temple, but they follow leaders with blind faith. They call it a community, but the behavior is the same: devotion, repetition, reverence. The digital guru has become confessor, therapist, and messiah all at once. They don't need to promise heaven. They promise relief. And they do it with impeccable aesthetics, blending visual calm with a narrative where everything is possible, everything is vibrational, everything is part of a greater plan. And if the plan doesn't work, it's your fault. You didn't meditate enough, didn't align your energy, didn't buy the right course. Deep down, it's no longer about faith. It's about emotional dependence dressed up as liberation. And technology keeps the cycle spinning nonstop. The algorithm delivers the next video, the next lesson, the next experience. All packaged as spirituality, but consumed like fast food. You leave feeling satisfied, but remain empty. And when you realize it, you're no longer questioning anything. Not the guru, nor the system behind them. You simply consume, replicate, feel part of something. That's what makes this new model so efficient. It doesn't impose. It invites. And by accepting the invitation, you step into something far bigger than you ever imagined. It is not armies that most threaten the world's stability today. Not weapons, nor visible conflicts. The real battlefield has shifted. It lies in symbols, in ideas, in the subtle emotions that circulate every day through glass screens. What's at stake is no longer territory, it's narrative. And whoever controls the narrative controls the world. What we've seen so far are not isolated movements. They are part of a larger design. Spiritual bankruptcy, technological colonization, ritualized entertainment, digital gurus, all these elements operate in sync. And the point of convergence is clear, a silent process of spiritual reset. Not a spontaneous reset, but a coordinated reformatting where everything solid is dismantled so that something new and controlled can take its place. This new system does not demand faith in old dogmas. It offers fluidity, accessibility, and personalization. But that is precisely where the danger lies. Because a rootless spirituality, shaped to fit consumer taste, leaves the individual vulnerable, easily guided, easily controlled. The mind opens in search of freedom, but finds algorithms disguised as purpose. Behind this new spiritual order is a logic of invisible domination. And it doesn't need direct censorship. All it takes is flooding the cultural space with distractions, soft promises, guides who don't challenge, only comfort. A form of control that comes not through force, but through ease. A control that feels voluntary, but is actually induced. This structure favors the great centers of power, not necessarily governments, but conglomerates. Groups that operate through data, media, artificial intelligence, that know exactly which beliefs are collapsing and which can be implanted in the void. Modern war doesn't need to win by force. It wins when the population doesn't realize it's fighting. In the US, this transformation is more visible because the country has always been the epicenter of symbolic disputes. The American dream was exported as a lifestyle, and now, the model of liquid spirituality is spreading too. Platforms, celebrities, discourses, all converging into an undeclared but already dominant doctrine. Faith and individual autonomy shaped by external systems. There are no clear leaders, no hymns, no sacred books. But there are slogans. Be yourself, create your own truth. The universe responds to your vibration. The constant repetition of these phrases is no accident. They don't just reflect a new spirituality, they shape behavior. And when collective behavior changes, culture changes. And with it, the perception of what is real. In this scenario, the expected Messiah may never appear as a person. It may very well be a system. A set of tools, ideas, services, and platforms that promise absolute well-being in exchange for total integration. You'll no longer need to search for truth. It will come to you, tailored to your profile, with a friendly interface. Ready to guide every step quietly. That's why this war is so hard to recognize. Because it doesn't destroy, it replaces. And what replaces seems better, lighter, more modern. But in the process, something fundamental is lost, the ability to question. When everything is perfectly tailored to what you want to hear, critical thinking dies in silence. The final war won't be fought with weapons or on physical battlefields. It will be fought through ideas, spirituality, and daily choices that seem innocent, but slowly reprogram the human essence. And by the time we realize it, the reset may already be complete. The spiritual deconstruction taking place across the United States is not an isolated phenomenon, nor accidental. It's part of a broad, silent, and deeply coordinated movement. Traditional faith has lost its space, but it hasn't been replaced by emptiness. It's been replaced by a system carefully crafted to look like freedom. Technology has become a confidant, Entertainment has become catechism, and digital gurus have taken the invisible altars of the internet. All of this under the promise of autonomy, but operating in truth through control. This story is just one piece, and one day you might see the whole puzzle. If this made you think, subscribe and like the video. It helps the channel grow. Don't forget to share, because more voices mean more discoveries.